Hey everybody, Scott here at EFI System Pro, and today we're talking about nitrous tuning with a Sniper 2. Stick around. So we get a decent amount of questions about nitrous control with a Sniper 2, and officially it's not possible. There's really no way to control nitrous, but we have come up with a way to tune for it, so you can still run the Sniper 2 with a dry shot of nitrous up to about 550 horsepower, maybe 600. So now the problem with this is you lose some of the safeties. You can't have the Sniper turn the nitrous off if it goes too lean or something like that, but you can definitely tune a dry shot with it. So what we're using is advanced tables that are triggered off of your nitrous trigger wire. So you send a ground signal to the Sniper, which then triggers your fuel enrichment. It will turn off the learning when that's enabled, and also reduce timing as needed for the amount of nitrous you're running. So let's jump into the software real quick and I'll show you what's going on there, and then we'll pull up some data logs and show you how it works. Okay, now that we're in the software, we can get the tune set up for nitrous tuning. One thing to note here, this is very much a use this information at your own risk. A lot of the safeties are gone when you're not actually controlling the nitrous with the Sniper, and you really need to understand the tuning and how to use it if you're going to do it. If you're controlling nitrous with the Sniper, like with a Sniper 1, you have a lot of safeties that if it goes too lean, it'll stop. If you let out the throttle, it'll stop the nitrous flow if you're not at a high enough RPM. So these are all things you need to understand that you have to control on your own in this situation. The Sniper 2 just doesn't have these capabilities. So what you need to do is load your tune that you want to add the nitrous tuning to. Then the first thing we'll do is come up here to the system ICF, go to basic IO, and in the IAC kick, set this to 0%. That's the input we're going to use to trigger the fuel and ignition tables. So we can close that. So next we'll go to Toolbox, enable Advanced. Now this brings up some advanced tables that we're going to use for adding fuel, reducing timing, and controlling the target AFR. So you'll click OK here, and then click No because we're going to do this from scratch. So you now have this new icon here for advanced tables, so we'll open that up. And we're going to use 3 1D tables here. So the first one, we go to Enable Table, give it a name like NOS Fuel. I like to set this to RPM, and we'll do that on all 3 tables. So for time delay to start, this is very dependent on how long the plumbing is between your nitrous solenoid and your nitrous plate. In my case, a quarter of a second works pretty well, so we're going to set all 3 tables to that. Then we'll go to Switched Enable, and we will use our input 1, which is the AC kick. Then Advanced Enable, because you don't want to activate nitrous at too low of an RPM, or if you're not at full throttle, then we'll set this to 90%, and that takes care of that. Now all 3 tables are going to be identical in this area, but it will change down here. So since we're using 3000 RPM as the cutoff, I like to set this to 2995, very close to 3000 RPM, but not there yet. This one to 3000. Then up here, let's say we're going to rev to 6500, so we'll set that there. You can select this whole area, right click, fill row values. It makes this a very smooth transition from 3000 to 6500. Then up here, since we're going to shoot 100 shot of nitrous for the whole RPM range, we'll set 30 pounds per hour to increase the fuel flow, because that tends to work pretty well for 100 shot. Now since we also need to run a richer mixture, we'll come over here to table 2, enable table, and this is going to be our target air-fuel ratio offset. So I'll set this to NOS AFR. And over here, we want to inhibit base learn when activated. What that'll do is it won't allow learning to add to your learn table when you're using nitrous, but it will keep it working when you're not using nitrous. Otherwise, you just have those two fighting each other all the time. We'll change this to target air-fuel ratio offset. This can also go to RPM. And then again, this table is going to be identical to the other one. And then one thing we can do is we can come back over here. We can select this whole table, right-click, copy, go back to our table 2, select this table, and paste. So they're identical. Now for the air-fuel ratio offset, we're going to want to run 1 full point richer. So we put -1, and that will take us from, say, 12.5 to 1 to 11.5 to 1. So that table's finished. Now we just need to work on timing. So we'll do one more table, enable table, NOS timing. Come here, and we will do timing offset, RPM here again. This will all be the same as the previous 2 tables. And we can come down here, select all, and paste. And then I like to start with reducing 2 degrees for 100 shots. So we'll do -2. And that means whatever is in your base timing table, when this is activated, you will get 2 degrees less. So now that that's all finished, we can take a look at a data log and see how it all comes together. So here's a data log that I made using an engine simulator. So that's one reason this red line is RPM, and that's why it doesn't look like it would if you were actually driving a car. This is throttle position, red here is RPM. These 2 lines are the ignition timing. These 2 lines are fuel flow. So this red line is the base fuel table, the green line is what's actually happening. And the reason they're offset just a little bit is I did that so they wouldn't overlap each other. But you can see they're running the same amount of fuel. And the reason it tapers off here was from the after start enrichment was still tapering off as I started the data log. Up here for the timing is the same deal. You can see 32 degrees for both. So you can see RPM starts coming up. We went to full throttle. Fuel flow stays the same all the way through. Timing stays the same all the way through. And up here, the target air fuel ratio stays the same all the way through. Now we can go to a data log with the nitrous enabled. So we have the same thing. Red line here is RPM. This red line is the base fuel table. This red line is the actual fuel flow, so you can see there's a difference for the nitrous. And the same thing here with timing. This is the timing table. This is the actual timing, and it's reduced by 2 degrees for the nitrous. And last up here is the target air fuel ratio, the same thing, that it drops down to 1 point richer. And that all happens when we hit our 3000 RPM turn on point. Now, one thing to notice with this data log, because I just didn't have enough hands to make this work with the engine simulator, work the throttle, and control the RPM, I had to enable the nitrous here at idle, and that's definitely something you don't want to do. If I had an extra hand, I could have, at 3000 RPM, hit the button there, but I had to just turn it on early so you could see it all activate at 3000 RPM instead of with the button. But what you would want to do in real life is have this all activate at 3000 RPM and also push your nitrous button at 3,000 or 4,000 RPM, whatever you feel is safe for your engine. Up here you can see our deactivation, that when throttle came down, everything deactivated and went back to normal. And that's definitely something you want to make sure that you're off the button if you let off the throttle too. Again, this goes back to use this information at your own risk, and you need to truly understand how nitrous works and what is safe and what isn't if you're going to do this. I really don't want to get a phone call from one of you that you blew the intake off the top of your engine or something like that, but I also want to give you the information to be able to use this stuff if it's something you need to do. So hopefully that covers everything for you. So armed with that knowledge, you can use a Sniper 2 for nitrous tuning if you already have one. If you don't already have a Sniper system, I would recommend going with a Terminator X Stealth instead. You just get much better control, you get some of the safeties. And it's just a much better option for controlling nitrous. One thing I do want to mention, if you buy your system from us, you get my help doing this at no extra charge and all of your tuning that you need. So if you need an EFI conversion, be sure to get with me and I'll help you pick the right one. That's all for now. We'll see you in the next one.